Oh my God.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Ravenstar's Witching Hour. I'm your host and head witch, Miss Solaris BlueRaven, at the helm this evening. I want to give a shout out to everybody at Revolution Radio, staff, producers, listeners, chat room, and thank everybody for tuning in tonight. And we are 100% listener supported, so if you like what you're hearing, please click on the donate button. We appreciate your support and thank you for any contribution you can make to this excellent station. And you are listening to Studio A. And my special guest this evening is Renee Coltson. Born and educated in the conservative Midwest, Renee's developed her practical and pragmatic approach to things that held a sense of mystery. She excelled in the corporate world for many years. Fascinating and exciting as it was, winning the game of personal power and financial success wasn't enough. There seemed to be something missing. In 1986, while on a sabbatical from corporate responsibilities, it became apparent that her ability as a natural healer could no longer be ignored. After a sequence of extraordinary events and much soul-searching, her life took a new direction, leading her on to a clear path of healing and teaching. Renee has learned from this direction, those who seek will attain, and there really is a pattern to the universe. By 1989, her natural healing ability was becoming more expanded, and she wanted to further her knowledge in the art of healing. She investigated, decided to train in Reiki, and began her healing practice using those principles. Through another sequence of profound events in February of 2000, Renee encountered the newly accessible frequencies of reconnective healing. Subsequently, her path shifted and evolved from a successful Reiki master teacher to a fulfilling journey, including that of an associate instructor for the reconnection. She leads the Reconnective Animals program worldwide, facilitates Reconnective Kids programs, and is a practitioner offering sessions for people and animals in person or from a distance internationally. Renee has a long history and deep love for the earth and all that live within and upon her. She brings wisdom gained through years of interacting with the furry, feathered, and scaly citizens of this planet to workshops taught globally. The foundation of these interactive workshops is based upon the premise and philosophy that all life sharing this biosphere are indeed in partnership to heal and evolve this plane in existence. Renee is the founder of Partnership in Planetary Healing, PIPH, a nonprofit humanitarian organization dedicated to easing suffering and raising planetary consciousness. Her website is piphealing.org. And please welcome Renee to my show this evening. Hi, Renee.
Hi, Solaris.
I hear you in the background there, miss. How you doing?
I'm awesome.
And
Is the sound okay?
Oh, you're fine.
Oh,
yeah, you sound good. You sound great. And you've been busy today.
Yes, I have. I've been teaching a class for reconnective healing practitioners to take them to the next level to be able to offer the reconnection to people to help evolve and shift this planet.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Well, I certainly appreciate the work you're doing. You're very diligent with it, and it seems to be having a very positive effect. And we're going to be discussing the animals tonight, which I think is really critical that people start tuning into to what's really happening with animals and the animal kingdom in general.
Well, there really needs to be a shift of awareness on how important the animals are to the evolution of this planet and humanity, and they are, after all, a part of this biosphere, and without them, we die.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
You know, they can actually live without us.
Mm-hmm. Oh, indeed, yeah. Without a doubt. Well, what about the oceans, too? I mean, it seems to me like there should be a lot of focus on our oceans right now, insofar as everything that's going. But our life support system seems to be kind of blinking on and off, on Mother Earth speaking, you know.
Well, interestingly enough, there are 7-point-some billion people on the planet. There are 100 billion domesticated animals. That's domesticated. Mm-hmm. That means in some way, shape, or form, those animals depend on a human being to feed them, to house them. They're often told when they're going to breed, where they're going to give birth, and many times where they're going to die. But in addition to the 100 billion domesticated animals on the planet, of course, we have all of the wild animals and the aquatic animals. Mm-hmm. Aquatic beings, really, the ones in the ocean, like you mentioned. So there's more of them than there are us.
Oh, absolutely. And it seems to me like there's a pattern of self-destruction so far as mankind and the way he approaches and treats animals. Now, for me, I mean, I'm vegan. I don't eat meat, and I don't like meat. You know, I don't believe in doing that. But how do we break people away from the pattern of believing that they actually need meat to survive? Or do you even think about that?
Of course I think about it. But, well, there's a lot of misconceptions out there also. You know, a lot of people think that when they're consuming organic food, i.e. meat, they get confused. It does not mean it's humanely treated at all. I don't know. really how we shift that. But I can tell you this. I emailed you about an ad I saw a couple days ago, which I just love because it says that, wow, out in mainstream on television, there is starting to be an awareness created that animals are beings embodied in, like, we're human beings, but we are not this form. This is not who we are at our core. This is not the essence of who we are. Our embodiment is that of a human physical body to come into this plane of existence, to experience life and to learn and to grow. Well, animals are the same in that way. So a cat is the embodiment of a cat, but that doesn't mean the cat or the giraffe or the dolphin or the whale or the dog or the horse. That's just their embodiment. Their consciousness and they have an essence just like we do, with a purpose and a reason for being here. And part of the problem, I think, is a great deal of the population worldwide do not recognize that animals are absolutely in the embodiment of that species, but that doesn't make them what they are in the wholeness of the overall global, world, universal, cosmic experience of life. So I turned on, I had emailed you when we were talking about what we were going to discuss tonight. We decided we would make the focus animals. And I had made a comment to you. Of course, I've always taught about implementing the consciousness of partnership when we're interacting with animals, and taking it to the next level is recognizing that they are beings. And I said to you, with a capital B, expressing the embodiment of what we see them as right now. Well, ironically, so I fly into Wisconsin to facilitate this seminar, and I flipped on the TV. If everything hadn't happened the way, and I have to say it was not a great travel day, but if everything hadn't happened the way it had happened, I wouldn't have turned on the TV at that moment and saw this ad. So I think it was advertising something about Spectrum Television and the bigger picture. I think it was about clearer pictures on TV. I'm not sure what Spectrum TV is, by the way. But how they were communicating this message was the oddest thing, but the most beautiful, yay, bravo thing. These people were shopping for their dinner. So they were in this store offering delicacies from the sea. And they went over to the lady of the store, took them over to this table where there's frozen fish food, and they both nodded their heads. And no, it wasn't going to be frozen. They wanted fresh. So she points to this aquarium, and there's an octopus in it, and it is alive. And they nod their head, yes, that's acceptable. That's what we'll have tonight. So they take the octopus home. Now, I don't know how you cook an octopus, okay? But what I was getting from this ad is this was going to be a live thing. So they take the octopus out of the bag. The man takes it into his hands. And you can see there's a huge boiling pot of water. And I'm looking at that going, oh my God, really? And all of a sudden, the octopus's tentacles are really in a gentle way caressing the man's hands, putting the tentacle through the fingers, and you could see it. And the man had this shift in his awareness right then. This is mainstream television. You see him going online and look up the subject matter of how to take care of your octopus pet. They did not cook this octopus. They put it in the bathtub with salt water. Anyway, I thought, first of all, that's a great message. Whoever created that ad is extremely conscious about animals. But it had nothing to do with animals. It was about a television thing. But I thought, wow, we are actually starting to communicate this message through the field for humanity on all levels to get. However we need to get it out there, great. So I think that message is very powerful, and it was very appropriate.
I agree with you on that one. Yeah. Well, it's true. I mean, they do contain consciousness. I mean, you hit it spot on insofar as the vehicle and the vessel, and that we're here in our suits and we occupy this space for a limited time and the illusion of time. But still, I mean, everything is entwined and interconnected. And I like to see it like that also. And I'd like to see more and more people aware of this. And I suspect that, just from what you've been witnessing recently, that things are starting to move in that direction.
And maybe that's what's going to take, Solaris, for people to stop consuming flesh, is for these sort of messages to be predominantly out there in whatever way they have to get there, because seriously, this ad had nothing to do with food.
Right. Well, it doesn't sound like it. It seems to me at some point in the continuum, I think we're just going to be living on energy and consciousness anyway. I believe that we don't even need food. I believe at some point we'll be morphed to such an extent we'll be able to just kind of breathe in a cosmic diet, so to speak.
Well, that's about our vibratory rate. As we raise our vibration, and the vibration of the planet also raises, and we're vibrating at a more rapid space, and our dis-ease is just falling away because we are living with more light in environment within us. That's correct. Food is density.
Yep.
I mean, that is for a very physical being. In fact, we are experiencing right now a very powerful interaction between matter and light within us and within all life on this planet. And this type of light is an expression of consciousness. And in fact, all life on this planet is infected, affected, and actually infected.
It probably is.
Exactly. With this new light environment that is coming forth on the planet.
I agree. So what is your take on the frequency of the planet right now? I mean, with all the upheavals you're seeing, or at least I'm experiencing and seeing across the globe, what do you think is causing this chaotic, sporadic kind of, obviously we're having some issues with all sorts of possible wars and this and that. So what do you think is causing that? Is it the higher frequency in your opinion?
Well, that's a hard one to really answer. I think there is a lot of upheaval. I think we passed the window of opportunity quite some time ago where we could go through grace and ease with this shift that we're experiencing. So the level of the shift and the way the shift is going to come through for us to get into harmony does depend on us. And I think that we are seeing a reflection of where we have been as a species globally, with all of the fear that has been projected into the field. And as long as people are not living in the love frequency, because love, by the way, is a frequency, it is energy. And there's two. There's love and there's fear. And as long as that fear is perpetuating in the field and we are impacted by what we're hit continuously through the media, we're being manipulated through that fear. But completely. And if we put our attention on that, if we buy into it, if we put our attention on it, we are actually participating in that. So on one hand, I'm going to say the fact that we are seeing such an elevated projection of possibilities in war and some of the horrific things that are happening on the planet, there's got to be balance. We know we live on a planet of duality. So maybe the light environment isn't as obvious to us.
Right.
We're seeing the darkness, but things can shift very rapidly. I wish I had the answer.
Well, I think you gave a nice explanation right there, actually, and I agree with you. And love is very powerful without a doubt. What I do notice is that you're right about the fear, because that does contract not only the aura, but it halts it kind of contracts the cells and the atoms too. It kind of puts everything in a stasis. So it really is kind of a non-productive vibration.
It creates density.
Right.
And animals are part of that, because of course, when we are, mistreating animals, and there's, lots of animal abuse in all species on this planet, they're in fear, and we're consuming that fear. And we're actually consuming the toxicity of the antibiotics they're injected with. I mean, what we are doing to the animals, we are actually doing to ourselves, because as they are consumed, we are consuming the vibration of what we're creating by harming them. When I say we, I mean not you and me.
Yeah,
I mean the collective out there.
Right.
So when people step into the part of love is a frequency and that we must recognize all life on this planet has value, we must respect it, we must realize that they have a purpose and a place for being, we will live in a different world.
Mm-hmm.
There won't be abuse. And we have become, a lot of human beings have become very numbed out to the pain and the suffering. I mean, think about it. Even when we see pain and suffering of things that are happening with humanity through disasters, we see so much of it. I think that we're reaching a level where we're getting numb to that too.
Mm-hmm.
Because it used to be that when something happened, we would all be out there helping one another, and it was a big news thing when a 8-point earthquake hit someplace, and now it's like not even, it seems like it's not recognized as a big deal.
Yeah, people are becoming calibrated to it. I believe that. Yeah, I can see it, actually. And it's hard, I guess, to direct the masses insofar as teaching them to respect animals and tuning into the higher levels of consciousness in general to a point where they are approaching things at a very spiritual, unconditionally loving level. It seems like, how do you get all of these people to sync up and understand the bigger picture in the full light universe? It's a very difficult task.
It is, and fortunately, not everyone has to, because we, mathematically, we are functioning here on this planet with critical mass too, the 100th monkey concept. So when there are enough people, and by the way, animals add to that field of love. Absolutely, they are contributing to it. Think about it. I mean, some of the animals that have somehow volunteered, I guess, to be here to set an example and to show us the vile behavior of some human beings. And the same goes for people too. I mean, children are abused, human people, there's so much abuse on this planet.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
But as people wake up and more people wake up, I think that does have a field effect. And I think it's George Green that wrote, has those 4 books out there, Handbook for a New Paradigm. And in one of those books, he states, or the beings that he was, speaking with, state that mathematically, it takes a lot more energy to focus on the negative than it does to hold the love vibration. So fortunately, the people who are holding the new light, cosmic energies, anchoring those energies into the planet, and maybe we recognize these things are happening globally, but we're not putting our attention on them. You can't put your attention on them. Right.
Yeah, and it's hard not to. I mean, at least for beings like myself, I'm kind of complex. But I embrace everything, but I don't omit certain things that I know are disturbing. I mean, I try to redirect that, but I do know there are a lot of people that actually do pay attention to what's happening across the board. And it's hard to tune out some of the drama because some of that drama is encroaching here in the United States right now. So I don't know how you approach that.
It's very scary. I remember years ago, my mom was all hyped up about something that happened in New York. And she was going on and on and on about the horrific thing that somebody did. And I said, Mom, you've got to calm down about this because you're actually fueling that. Just by your emoting about it, you're actually contributing to that scenario.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So neutral compassion is another important thing when we're seeing, that's reality. I mean, these things are happening out there, but if we judge them or if we jump into our emotional body, we literally are fueling it.
Right. Yeah, I like the neutral compassion stance. I think that's a good one. Yeah, in general. And also, have you ever thought about redirecting a negative situation to, I know with the energy work that you do, you just kind of allow the energy to do its thing. But what about redirecting it and redesigning it to a point where you're actually negating the evil?
Well, I think that one of our birthrights, one of our most powerful birthrights is our imagination. And through the power of free will and our imagination, we actually can create the potential of a new reality, a new paradigm.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree.
But it's got to be a group of people. There has to be enough people with that mission, with that thought in mind. The light is here. There is this new environment, this new biophoton activity, this new light environment that has come onto the planet for our evolution and for our healing. And we are interacting with it. More and more people are able to tap into and interact with it. And we'll get into that a little bit more when I talk about Eric Pearl and the work he's doing with reconnective healing, the reconnection. What we can do actually to consciously bring more light into our lives and into the light of others just by being present.
Mm-hmm.
And animals, to me, they are the arena. For me personally, I choose animals as the arena to put my attention in the work that I do globally to bring people to a place to understand how to interact more efficiently, more effectively with animals to bring this new and light environment onto the planet, because they are also shifting the planet when they are grounding this light and information. And by the way, it is, in addition to that, it's a love frequency. Mm-hmm. Love is a frequency. It's not, and Eric Pearl would say, it's not about a Hallmark card. It's a different kind of love. It is a frequency.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And so how do we recreate those scenarios? As we don't put our attention on how awful these things that are happening, we have to bring our attention into our consciousness back to being balanced and seeing another way. And a lot of things that are happening right now in the news, it seems really mundane, but when a sports celebrity is caught on tape, right? Like this. I'm not into sports. I just caught the end of it. What's that guy's name?
I know who you're talking about. I don't know his name offhand. Yeah.
And so this happens quite a lot, that things like these, domestic violence, animal abuse, all these things, they're going on. But when something comes to the forefront of the news of a noted personality, somehow there can be a difference made because the attention is on there and people go, wait a minute, that's not right. We've got to change this. And it gives people an example of this can't happen. This is not appropriate behavior. Mm-hmm. It's not acceptable.
Right. Yeah. So that once again, the attention isn't such a negative, then it's more
exactly. It's turning it around to go, well, okay, so that person did something that has brought the center of attention to this scenario, and people are changing that, going, you know what, we're going to change this. Mm-hmm. This isn't acceptable.
Yeah, so that's good. Mm-hmm. Without a doubt. And yeah, you have to ask, I mean, to me, when I observe things, sometimes it looks like a mass possession taking place with people across the board on this world. And there are a lot of us who are expanded in consciousness. I had a discussion with a friend of mine. Most of us, not all, I don't want to say most, but a lot of us are very expanded in consciousness. And we're already like, we're already just set in consciousness and motion. And a lot of people are just kind of like displaced and almost like possessed. Now, I don't know if you've noticed this or not, because of the work you do, you're probably attracting the right audience. But there is a kind of a strange behavioral pattern happening across the board where people, it almost seems like they can't hold the light or the frequency.
Well, I know a lot of people who are, I would say, are enlightened beings who are conscious, but they're getting hit hard, Solaris. Mm-hmm. And I think part of that is to distract them.
I agree with you on that.
Bring them down to their knees. Mm-hmm. Get people so wrapped up in survival that they're not looking at the bigger picture. They're so wrapped up in their world. I'm seeing that a lot with a lot of people. And, I'm just going to switch gears on animals again, because okay. I just saw a note that I'd scribbled down, and it's a consciousness thing. I was in PetSmart, and there are these lizards in a glass box, right? An atrium from Madagascar. And I start doing some healing work with these lizards, and they're responding really well. And by the way, normally they will run back underneath a rock or some other plant life because they don't really want to deal with people. But these lizards were right up at the front, and I'm interacting with them, and this guy comes over and goes, "What are you doing?" And I told him, he goes, "Well, I've never seen them behave that way." But I said, "What are these lizards from Madagascar doing in PetSmart?" He goes, "Well, actually, they're not from Madagascar. They're farmed here. So
Mm.
that sets up a whole nother thing, right?
Right.
So at least they haven't been kidnapped from their environment, because a lot of animals are. So I thought, well, now we have a whole nother thing. Of course, people might want to free those lizards, but they couldn't survive anyway. And when I see animals taken from their habitats and completely victimized by being trapped in an environment where they don't belong, again, it brings up the whole thing about humanity and where we are. Because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people are living like that just in their everyday lives.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not good.
No,
Well, how often do you do the work on animals? Do you go to the Humane Society or places like that? And
I do. And, it used to be a very difficult thing for me to do, and because they're suffering and it's a sad place.
mm-hmm.
But the more I taught the workshop that I teach, and the more I would hear people go, I can't go down there. It's too hard. I go, you know what? You need to get over yourself and step out of your shoes. And I went, oh, yeah, and I do too. I mean, several years ago, because we can go through those environments and just walk through and bring this new light environment into that environment, because it's an entrainment effect.
Mm-hmm.
So we are actually bringing this light and information into the environment. It becomes conditioned space with this new light. The animals will carry the light, and they will share it with others because it works through the field.
Mm-hmm.
I was down at the county a couple months ago, and it was really hard not to take these two cats home, but I just can't because I travel. And if I add more animals into my life, that means somebody else is going to be responsible for them when I leave. And I don't have anybody else
Mm-hmm.
except for my dog, and he can't take care of cats. And Teddy goes with me most often. So anyway, these two little black kittens were just like playing and rolling, and they're looking at me, and I was doing the healing work on them. And I thought, these cats and the surrounding animals, they may die tomorrow or the next day or the day after that. They may be euthanized. But the fact is, they were just loved completely.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those animals have never, ever experienced any love at all. They don't know. They don't know what that is. So yes, I do go down there, and it's also, I see a lot of suffering with performance horses that are treated like machines.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't perform, they're basically taken to the auction.
Oh,
So
that's horrible.
yes, I do. I want to be in service with those animals. I used to adopt a lot of animals, and I think at one point I had 35 pets.
Mm.
Yeah. and, and including birds. And, I would do a lot of volunteer work for the rescue organizations. And I got to the point where I said, listen, you can call me any time of day or night. I am happy to come and donate my time, but please don't ask me to adopt the animals. I can't. And here's another thing that we do find is that when we are exposing these animals in sanctuaries and rescue facilities and people who are fostering the animals, even the humane societies, because I've done classes at the humane societies where they let me come in and use their animals for the workshop, work with the animals, and you know what? They get adopted out.
Nice.
It is nice because they change. And I was in your area.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's been a while. I don't know if you're familiar with the Edwards Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and Linda Edwards, and we went out there, and I did a fundraiser for her, and then I did a workshop. And at the fundraiser, there were a couple of the practitioners there that were helping me out with that, and they were out with these two burros. And Linda goes, well, that's a really unusual thing. Those burros, they just don't like people at all. They won't go near people. She goes, you guys must have a really good heart. And I said, no, it's more than that. It's the frequencies. Mm-hmm. Well, when we left, one of the burros' name was Sugar. And that burro was completely socialized after a 2-hour event, completely. Whatever Sugar's dis-ease was with people, whatever her level of abuse, whatever caused her to hate being around humans, was completely dissolved. The other one still had a little bit of apprehension around people, but by the time we returned for the full day's workshop a couple months later, both of them met us at the gate.
Nice. That's wonderful.
Complete healing. And we hear that a lot. Another place I go, Dream Chasers in New River, Arizona, Dream Chaser PMU. That's the Premarin mare. You know what PMU stands for, right? For horses. Mm-hmm. It's Premarin mares. You know where Premarin comes from?
No, why don't you tell me?
You know the drug that women take for hormone? Mm-hmm. It comes from urine of pregnant mares. So Susan rescues, and now they do have synthetics now, but here's how it started. She found out after 15 years of taking Premarin, an article came across her desk on where that drug was coming from, and it was coming from these pregnant mares, pregnant mare urine, PMU, Premarin. She found out that up in Alberta, Canada, I think there is about 20,000 horses a month being slaughtered, something like that. And she quit taking the drug. She sold everything she could possibly sell, and she arranged transport for as many mares as she could rescue out of these Premarin places. And they're hooked up to machines 24 hours a day. They're basically impregnated. They stand on their feet. When the foal is born, typically the foal is slaughtered right in front of the mare. And that's where they make the drug.
Oh, that's so sad.
Women who take this hormone therapy don't really know where it's coming from. So again, it's about educating people. It's about educating people. What does that mean? You know?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And the whole concept, I mean, that vibration alone, I mean, this is what I mean. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, I'm sure, insofar as animals and the kind of abuse they go through from day to day, whether it's for milk or whatever. It's just very sad to me when I think about that kind of a collective. So the work that you're doing, once again, is very, very impactful. And also, I do want to cover the technique you do use on these animals.
Well, okay, I am on the international teaching team with Dr. Eric Pearl, who is the founder of the Reconnection and Reconnective Healing. So in 1993 was when we began to see a shift on this planet with this new level of light and information that became available. Basically, it's a new light environment coming into the planet because of where we are in the universe, really. Mm-hmm. So Eric had this experience, and he has a book called The Reconnection, Heal Others, Heal Yourself. That's the first book. And the second one is called Solomon Speaks, and that's a higher viewpoint of the work. It's more about humanity evolving. But the first book is the foundational information about this work. So Eric really had a lot of patience and tenacity in figuring out, what happened to him. He encountered these frequencies, and he started interacting with them in his chiropractic practice. Actually, they started interacting with him. Mm-hmm. And people that came in for chiropractic started having responses they hadn't had before, and they would go home, and people around them would experience a healing. And it was clear something had changed. So reconnective healing, the short version is reconnective healing came from Eric's interaction with these frequencies and figuring out that the further you move away from the body, the stronger it became. And that is contrary to energy work.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Energy dissipates. So the further you get away from the body, because of course I had a background in natural healing and a background in Reiki, so I was very familiar with, of course, you move further and further away from the body, it doesn't become stronger. Mm-hmm. It becomes weaker. Just like the heat from a fire. If you get further from the fire, it gets less, not more intense. So we know it's different, and there's a lot of laboratory experiences out there that he went through, and this is all available online. TheReconnection.com is the website, and there's a very good explanation of this work, how it works. We have no idea. Okay, we don't know how it works. We just know that there actually was a research study done by Fritz Popp, who's a German biophysicist and the grandfather of cancer cell research. And his research showed that basically within humanity, there is a baseline of how human beings receive and transmit light. So all cells have DNA. All DNA is a transmitter and a receiver of light. When you're not healthy, you basically are transmitting less light. When you're healthy, you're transmitting more light because you are a beam. Animals also have a baseline. They're not the same as we are, but they have cells and they have DNA, and so they transmit and receive light. So basically, different species have different baselines. So through this cancer cell research, other researchers started looking at this DNA transmitting of light and receiving light. And they started studying different groups of human beings. People who, so there's a baseline, which means everybody falls in there somewhere, right? Mm-hmm. And then they started studying people in the lab that do healing, that do prayer, that do meditation, that do yoga. And they discovered that this baseline of human beings actually transmit and receive more light than the common person who's not involved in those activities. Well, along comes Eric Pearl. And he started in, I think the first researcher was Gary Schwartz down at the University of Arizona in Tucson. And they took him into the lab, and he was just one. There's several researchers where Eric and a lot of us on the team have been into the lab. We've been lab rats. What they discovered was there was something happening with Eric Pearl that they had not seen before, and therefore now we recognize that there's a third baseline in humanity. And it's the people who are actually anchoring this light and information and interacting with this new light environment on the planet. And that started changing in 1993. And the more people that interact with these frequencies, the more probability of the more people and animals will pick up on it. Like you can meet these frequencies by sitting next to somebody who interacts with them. Or you can meet these frequencies by going and have a healing session or interacting with them. Anyway, there's a lot of ways to interact with these. The thing about Eric is that he actually can teach people how to interact very effectively with these frequencies to bring about miraculous healings spontaneously.
Mm-hmm. It's fascinating. Yeah, I love it. And, the frequencies themselves, now, these are things that cannot be disconnected, right? Once you tune into these frequencies, they're permanent. Is that correct?
Exactly. And they are here. I mean, it's cosmic energy. So the energy is here, but people have to find it. They have to interact with it. And if they don't know how, they're not going to be really conscious of that. But once you meet them consciously and you interact with them, yes, they are there. And I think I sent you the Partnership in Planetary Healing Call to Action, which is really about recognizing that, yes, we do teach people in one weekend how to interact with these frequencies for their own lives, on a personal level. They can go home, they can interact it, and then in the next seminar, 2 days after that, they're more able to understand the deeper philosophy and principles of reconnective healing and facilitate reconnective healing sessions for others very efficiently to the level of any healer on the planet, no matter Eric Pearl, any experienced person. I mean, anybody can learn this work. Anybody can.
That's what's so awesome about it. Yeah. And of course, you don't have to achieve an altered state of consciousness to draw in the energy either, do you?
No, that's another really great thing. It isn't, because you know what? We are not, there's no energy exchange between this. So say that I am interacting with a dog or a horse or a person. I'm not sending the energy, light and information to that being. I am interacting with the frequencies, and just because a person is present there who knows how to interact with these frequencies, the field effect is amplified with this new level of light environment. So we actually go into, I call it going into light production. Because the being is present, be it a person or an animal, they are receiving, but they're not receiving from us. They're in training into the frequencies through the field. The light is received by the DNA in their cells, and the information is transmitted throughout the wholeness of that person or that animal to use these frequencies for healing and evolution the most appropriate way for them. Mm-hmm. So the philosophy and the principle of this work is really we best not know what's going on. Sometimes it's obvious, right? Mm-hmm. But the idea is that if you know too much, you're going to direct. As soon as you stepped into knowing what's going on,
so true.
You are sending, you are interfering.
Yeah, you get out of the way.
Now, you can get to a point where, again, you can go into that place of detachment or neutral compassion and stay out of the way. But that is a challenge for a lot of people. I recently worked with this horse down in Queen Creek, and it was hard, because I did have the information. And so I did it from a distance, because if I had gone down and this horse had colicked and had a twisted gut, that's serious stuff. Colicking, I was just equine camping a weekend ago, and a horse up there colicked too, but she didn't have a twisted gut. So horses can get through that, and she probably got through it a lot more peacefully because of the work that we were doing up there with her. But this horse laid down. Now, I got to tell you the story. So this guy and this woman, they train roping horses to send up to Canada with the hopes of being NFR, National Finals Rodeo champions, right? So they had just sold this horse, whose name was Cash, for $25,000. The transport, so that was on Friday. The transport was coming up, Thursday. It was on Thursday. The transport was not going to be there to pick the horse up until Monday. Friday morning, the horse colicked, laid down, rolled, twisted its gut. They call the vet. The vet comes out. They do a check. They go, well, you know what? You got to bring this horse in because there's a twisted gut. So they take him to the veterinarian clinic. They did some testing on the tissue of the intestines. It was already beginning to die, the tissues of the intestines. So the vet says, well, okay, the surgery is $10,000, and that's really the best I can tell you to do for this horse. And they said, well, it's not our horse anymore. And the person who bought the horse didn't feel they were responsible for the 10 grand either for the surgery. So they called me. Now, okay, so I have too much information already, right? Because I get the whole story from the barn manager before I could say, please don't tell me anymore. Anyway, I said, well, I'll just do this from a distance, because I know if I go down there and I observe this horse suffering to that degree, they drugged the horse. And basically the vet sent the horse home and said, well, if you're not going to have the surgery, there's nothing I can do here. Mm-hmm. So he sent the horse home, said they kept him on drugs so he would not roll again, right, or thrash, and keep him sort of numbed out and keep him hydrated. And the vet said, you need a miracle. So anyway, long story, but I did one session on that horse from a distance. The horse was on the transport Monday.
Wow.
And that is the miracle of this work. Now, it might not happen. We know that with these frequencies, a healing does occur, but it works on all levels. It works physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, right, and beyond, because it's actually multidimensional. It works in parallel universes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that.
Right, because we're fragmented. We don't even know all the levels that we're operating on a consistent basis. We just don't.
Mm-hmm. And that's a good point you make with the fragmentation. So does this type of work pull in those fragments and restructure?
Well, that is definitely the idea, because it works with the DNA. Mm-hmm. So there's two different applications of the frequencies. One is reconnective healing, and that is for healing of dis-ease. And basically, it allows the body to come back into balance. It brings light and information into this new light environment is created within the bodies. And when you have light, the density can fall away. It restores balance and healing happens. We don't know how the healing is going to come through ever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard for a person with an animal who has cancer or a person who has cancer. I mean, it's difficult when we say to them, now don't have an attachment to your outcome, because that's one of the beauties of working with animals, Solaris, is because they're not going through all of that hoping and wishing and praying that this cancer is going to fall away and they're going to have their healing. I personally, I love people too, don't get me wrong, but I love working with animals because they just seem to move through things a little more quickly and with a little more ease than people do.
I can relate.
I think we get into our own way often, because we have an idea of what we want our life to look like. We have an idea and an attachment, and actually we might even think that we can manipulate things to make it happen. We don't really do well at remaining in a state of allowing. Universal principles are work in all things, all of it, And I really recommend that people really look at universal principles and put them into operation in their life fully, because you can see things unfold and shift in your life very quickly. And I love reconnective healing because it is based on those principles.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. And how long was that session you did with the horse?
Oh, from a distance? Mm-hmm. I actually half fell asleep. So.
Wow.
Yeah, probably
Amazing.
about 45 minutes.
That's just amazing.
And only one, because I had people coming in for a fundraiser I was doing and basically had to move on. And that is the idea. You just don't look back. You do the work, you just allow it to happen and unfold as it will, and you have to let go.
Right. So do me a favor and just set the stage a little bit insofar as what you would do to prepare to do a healing session remotely on an animal. Is there anything specific? I know in the old days, with healing, people will have visuals and pictures and incense and all this other stuff. What do you incorporate? Anything?
We don't need anything.
Okay.
Now, here's the thing. I drift. Okay. So my mind drifts. So I might ask questions to keep my mind focused on something. So I might say, okay, your dog, for instance. I'm going to go, what color are your dog's eyes? How long is it for? It's a German Shepherd. Is that right?
Who, me? No,
Yeah,
he's a cattle dog mix. He's
a cattle dog.
I think
mix.
He's got Great Dane in him. He's a big boy.
So I would ask questions like that. What color are the eyes? What are the special markings? Now, it's not because we need that to connect. It's because I need that to bring my mind back into being present. Mm-hmm. With the session. So we don't need a picture. We definitely don't need any ritual. We don't need any incense. There's nothing special that we have to do prepare, whether it's from a distance or in person. We don't do any rituals. We don't have to breathe. We don't have to breathe in, exhale, blow out. We don't have to find any, now the old way of healing, the way I was trained was to find the blocks, right? Mm-hmm. To scan the auric field and find the highs and the lows, the hot and the cold, where there was like a block, you could feel it. None of that. Mm-hmm. That is old paradigm healing. This is new paradigm. This is a new light environment. This is just being present, whether you're in person or from distance. You don't have to meditate. You can actually eat meat. It's not about you. Mm-hmm. It's not about your state of pure. We are perfect beings. Mm-hmm. This is recognizing that we are already perfect.
Exactly. Well, let me ask you real quick. Do you become the vehicle for the energy, or are you just a facilitator?
We're a facilitator.
Okay.
And in a way, a conduit, because the light it's always present. So once you've interacted with these frequencies, you are this light. It becomes, your essence becomes this light. Mm-hmm. But when you put your attention on it, it seems that it becomes stronger because your attention's on it. So I can be walking through a grocery store. I can be standing in my healing session, and it's always there. But if I put my attention on it, I become aware of it. Mm-hmm. And then I feel it coming through. But I'm not sending. There's no transference of energy between the practitioner and the person or the animal. It simply is, we're there. This light is produced through us and within us and through the field. The other being entrains or connects into their own session. I have did I ever send you the video of the horse demonstration?
I don't think so.
That was an NBC News thing, but it kind of blew them away because they came out with their, to film me working on this horse. And I'm no fool. I picked the horse that I already knew was going to demonstrate well, right? I knew Sinatra was the horse. I went, oh, yep, Susan, bring out Sinatra. And she put him in a paddock with a bunch of other horses. So my focus and attention was on Sinatra, and he went into what we call involuntary registers. So the eyes kind of they don't have to, but they can start blinking. The breathing can change. His legs were rocking. But so I'm interacting.
Renee, we're heading for a break real quick. We're going to continue this on. Everybody stay tuned. We'll be right back.